All right, let's start with the big story that we are tracking on Wion at this hour, where the proposal to blacklist Masood Azhar by the United Nations Security Council will be taken up on the 13th of March. And Wion has learned from its sources in the Pakistani government that the Imran Khan government may not oppose the listing of Masood Azhar as a UN proscribed terrorist. Now, the sources have revealed that Pakistani government has stated that it wants to act decisively against all non-state actors, who are those who have been listed by the United Nations under different sections. All right, so this is an interesting twist in terms of how Pakistan may deal with Masood Azhar, where sources in the Pakistani government are now telling us that it is quite possible that when the issue comes up at the United Nations Security Council on the 13th of March, Pakistani government may not try to block the listing of Masood Azhar as a globally recognized terrorist at the United Nations Security Council. Remember, this is, of course, something that has been moved by three permanent members of the United Nations Security Council, France, Britain and the United States, who have now, of course, moved this motion to get Masood Azhar listed as a globally recognized terrorist. Now, Russia has also, in some ways, it has pledged its support to India, but which way it will go in terms of listing Masood Azhar as a globally recognized terrorist is something that will have to be looked out for. But the President of Russia, Vladimir Putin, had recently spoken to Prime Minister Narendra Modi and had pledged Russia's support in India's battle against terror. But the elephant in the room is, of course, China. It has made certain ambiguous statements in the aftermath of the Pulwama attack. Remember, 3 times in the past, it has blocked the listing of Masood Azhar as a globally recognized terrorist at the United Nations Security Council. And whether it will again use its veto against the designation of Masood Azhar is something that will have to be looked out for. All right, now we are, I'm told, joined in by our Islamabad Bureau Chief, Anas Malik, who's joining us from Islamabad. Good afternoon to you, Anas. Now, this is some interesting bit of news that's coming in from Pakistan, where, according to sources, it's being said that the Pakistani government may not try to block the listing of Masood Azhar as a globally listed terrorist. What has brought about this sudden change of heart on the part of the Pakistani government?
Well, certainly, Saleh, this is an interesting piece of information that government sources are conveying to Wion, that the government of Pakistan has formally decided not to oppose the listing of Masood Azhar as a globally designated terrorist. Now, remember, previously, not just once but twice, the Pakistani side through China has got this motion vetoed of designating Masood Azhar as a globally designated terrorist. In addition to that, a central authority has also been formed at the Pakistani Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which will be recommending actions against all of these non-state actors or those organizations that are banned and are currently roaming free in Pakistan. Now, these organizations are those, or individuals are those, which have been listed by the United Nations in one or the other charges. So, interesting piece of information that is coming in from Pakistan. A change in heart at Islamabad. Formally, a decisive action, as what the sources have been telling, that decisive action is to be taken against all those who are listed under the United Nations Security Council under different sections. That includes Hafiz Saeed, that includes Masood Azhar, that includes individuals from the Jaish-e-Mohammed as well. Yes, Saleh.
Okay, but looking at the past track record of Pakistan, every time there is some heat that is turned up internationally for Pakistan backing these terrorists, the action that Pakistan ends up taking is it decides to put these individuals of interest, such as Hafiz Saeed, Masood Azhar, etc., under house arrest. And then that lasts for a period of time, and once the international pressure is off, these individuals are allowed to operate freely. Now, how are we to believe that the action that is being considered this time round would be a much more decisive action, as is being claimed by the Pakistani government sources?
Well, Saleh, something that has to be kept in mind that the house arrest of Hafiz Saeed under 16 MPO was under consideration. But remember, the FATF, the Financial Action Task Force, is not ready to buy Pakistan's cosmetic actions. They want a solid action or solid evidences being solid actions being taken against these organizations or these individuals. As a reason of which the Pakistani side has to act. Now, something that is very interesting is the fact that the Asia Pacific Group or the APG of the FATF is to meet in middle of May, on the 20th of May, and this action has to come before that particular date. Yes, Saleh.
Absolutely, indeed. And also very quickly, Anas, the fact is the sources are saying that Pakistani government may not oppose the listing of Masood Azhar as a globally recognized terrorist, but will Pakistan act against Masood Azhar?
Well, yes, the Pakistani side has to act against Masood Azhar, not just Masood Azhar but Hafiz Saeed as well, because as I said, that it is much to do with the FATF pressure, the globally mounted FATF pressure, that if Pakistani side fails to act against Hafiz Saeed, Masood Azhar and their affiliates, Pakistan as a country is to be blacklisted then in October's plenary meet of the Financial Action Task Force. Therefore, it is the action against these individuals is inevitable, and as the Pakistani government sources are saying, that it is not being done on the behest of a particular country, but it is being done, this action, this decisive action will be done in the interest of Pakistan. Yes, Saleh.
Absolutely, indeed, Anas. Do continue to stay on with us. Meanwhile, the matter of the designation of Masood Azhar as a global terrorist will come up on the 13th of March unless China were to block the move. Now, just last week, the United States, the United Kingdom and also France had proposed that the United Nations Security Council will blacklist the head of the Pakistan-based Jaish-e-Mohammed, Masood Azhar, backing India's stance and also acknowledging his role in the Pulwama terror attack. Now, the proposal is expected to come up for discussion on the 13th of March. The United States, the United Kingdom and France had asked the 15-member Security Council Sanctions Committee to subject Masood Azhar and put him on an arms embargo, a global travel ban and also an asset freeze. Now, this is the action that will be taken against Masood Azhar as and when he is put as a designated terrorist on the United Nations list. Now, what is also of interest here is how China will react to the proposal given its track record. Now, China on at least 3 occasions in the past has prevented the United Nations Security Council from sanctioning the Jaish-e-Mohammed chief, but there are now hopes in certain quarters that China may actually relent this time round under advice from both the United States and Russia. Meanwhile, the chairperson of the UNSC Sanctions Committee has notified that unless he gets any objections by the 13th of March, the committee will assume that member nations have absolutely no objections whatsoever to the addition of Masood Azhar to this list. All right, my colleague Anas Malik is still with us live from Islamabad. Now, Anas, the interesting aspect is how China has behaved so far every time the matter of listing of Masood Azhar in this list of global terrorists has come up. Have you had any indicator at all as to which way China will use its veto this time round?
Well, Saleh, something that has to be kept in mind is the fact that the Chinese veto was in place because of Islamabad's mounting pressure on Beijing. But this time, Islamabad itself has decided to give up on this particular individual, and Islamabad will not formally be opposing the listing of Masood Azhar as a globally designated terrorist. Therefore, the question of Islamabad pressurizing Beijing into vetoing it does not arise. And that is what the diplomatic sources have been telling Wion as well, that this time around, the Pakistani government has taken this decision in principle to give up the listing of Masood Azhar and to give up the opposition of the listing of Masood Azhar. And therefore, in continuation to this, the Chinese side will be taken in the loop, and we're expecting China not to veto this before the 13th of March. Yes, Saleh.
All right. Now, Anas, the other thing that will be looked at very closely is why Pakistan is resorting to this. Because remember, post the Mumbai attacks, 26/11 attacks back in 2008, Hafiz Saeed had been designated as a globally recognized terrorist. It was a designation that was given to him, but no concrete action was taken on the ground. So Pakistan, by now not objecting to the listing of Masood Azhar as a globally recognized terrorist, is it just trying to ease off the pressure on itself, considering the international boycott that it is likely to suffer if it were to be seen to be backing these terrorists?
Well, that is one way to look at it, Saleh. But given the mess that the Pakistani establishment is currently in, and Pakistan is as a country, particularly with regards to the Financial Action Task Force, the anti-graft body and anti-terror funding body worldwide, Pakistan has to act against Hafiz Saeed and Masood Azhar, because if it does not, then in the October session or in the October plenary meeting of the Financial Action Task Force, the Pakistani side will be put under the blacklist, and Pakistan is the level best to avoid that, as a reason of which the government sources are now telling Wion that this decisive action is to be taken soon. It is to be initiated very soon, and it will not just be limited to Masood Azhar or Hafiz Saeed, but it will go on for any affiliates of the Jaish-e-Mohammed, of the Falah Insurance Foundation, of the Jamaat-ud-Dawa, those who have been in any associated with the organizations in any capacity, any time. So clearly the Pakistani side hinting out at a decisive action. What remains is to be seen is that will it be a hawkwash, or will it be practical, or will it be an actually decisive action as claimed? That is something that only time can tell. Yes,
I think that's very well said. Thank you very much indeed, Anas Malik, for joining us live from Islamabad and getting us that perspective, the Pakistani perspective, as to how Pakistan is viewing this. But to add the Indian perspective on this, we are now joined in by our senior political affairs editor, Kartikeya Sharma, who's joining us live from New Delhi. Kartikeya, this is not something that is new to India, because remember, in 2008, India had lobbied and it had managed to get Hafiz Saeed listed as a globally recognized terrorist. But even after that, he's been able to carry on with his nefarious activities pretty much as usual. Now, even if Masood Azhar is now listed as a globally recognized terrorist, what changes on the ground?
See, that's besides the point, but the news which our bureau chief in Islamabad, Anas Malik, is breaking is of great significance. And I would say that the importance is that somehow the crisis which enveloped the subcontinent has somehow made Pakistan realize that some concessions need to be made on terror. You know, if Anas is online, I would really like to ask him what has led to this change. See, the change may not take place on ground. The non-state actors might continue to work, but the fact that this change has taken place, why has this change taken place now? What prompted them to allow this? Because as Anas was saying, because of Pakistan's request, China was blocking this move at United Nations Security Council. So the fact this has happened is that something has changed at a diplomatic level. So what has prompted that change is the question. Absolutely.
I think we have lost the line with Anas. We'll try get Anas back soon, Kartikeya. But the other question that I need to ask you in this case is, it was China that had been blocking the listing of Masood Azhar as a globally recognized terrorist. Do you think this time round, in the wake of the new developments, China will not block the listing of Masood Azhar?
No, I don't think so, because that happened because the Pakistan was objecting to it. Now, if you look at the news which has been broken by our colleague Anas, you know, he's categorically, putting it on record that this decision has been taken place at the highest level. And he says government to act decisively against all non-state actors. And all these non-state actors are those who are listed by UN under different sections. Government not to oppose the listing of Masood Azhar at UN. So is that the concession which Pakistan making? Is that the ground which Pakistan making for India, Pakistan to talk to each other? See, what was Narendra Modi saying? Modi was saying that certain discernible, visible, on-field action needs to be taken. And somehow every effort on part of India was being frustrated at UN because it was being vetoed. The fact that this has happened, doesn't it create a middle ground for talk or even a conversation? Because Prime Minister Modi has not taken call from Imran Khan, Prime Minister of Pakistan, yet.
That is true, but looking at what has been said officially, let's not be naive in the case of how Pakistan has behaved. There were two interviews that were given by Shah Mahmood Qureshi, the foreign minister of Pakistan, and he has been pretty categorical in saying that his country will take action only if there is evidence that is given that the Jaish-e-Mohammed and Masood Azhar is responsible for the Pulwama attack. Now, India, every time there has been a terror attack, has given information, has given evidence, but Pakistan has never acted, not in this attack and not in the last 3 decades. So why should we think that Pakistan has really had a change of heart?
Nothing will change on the ground. He will be given a safe position by the Pakistani government. He will be stationed at a safe place, but it will allow some elbow room to India. Please understand that the politics or the relationship between Pakistan and India is entirely dependent on the public mood in both the subcontinents.
Right.
So this is like giving an elbow room to the government in Delhi that you have done something. What happens or not is a different thing. But at least you have allowed this to happen, which was being blocked at your behest at the UN. So it allows some room for a concession, for a conversation, and I think that's the most important part.
Absolutely indeed. Karthik, I'm told that we are now joined by Anas Malik, and you had a question to him.
Anas, my question to you is that consistently at the Pakistan's request, China had blocked this resolution in the United Nations Security Council. What prompted this decision, which you have learned from your sources, that Pakistan will not block this?
Well, particularly if we talk about this decision, Karthikeya, remember the Pakistani review at the Financial Action Task Force is to take place in October, the final review. And if Pakistan, we saw a very hard-hitting statement coming in from the Financial Action Task Force against Pakistan and its failure to act against Jaish-e-Mohammed, Lashkar-e-Taiba, the Flying Sahel Foundation, the Jamaat-ud-Dawa, and other affiliates. Those who have been, those elements who have been particularly anti-India, or who have been planning attacks from Pakistan into India. So it is a matter of life and death for the Pakistani administration if they don't act, and as a reason of which the Pakistani side has to act decisively before the 20th of May, because the Asia Pacific group of the Financial Action Task Force is to meet, and FATF is now demanding practical actions. They're asking for rate of convictions and not just law amendments. They're asking Pakistan on what practical steps have they done, and as a reason of which Pakistan is forced to act against the Jaish-e-Mohammed. And what the sources are telling, that as much as this action might be linked up or hinted upon the international pressure, but it has, in the longer term, it is to do with the well-being of the country. Yes, Karthik.
So basically you are saying that it's more about FATF and Pakistan's relationship with the world and not with Balakot and Pulwama. That's the differentiation you are making. But nonetheless, now tell me, Anas, from your sources, do you think that China is going to intervene now, or the ball has been set for him to be blacklisted?
Well, Karthikeya, previously we saw Beijing intervening on the behest of Islamabad and vetoing this proposal not just once but thrice. But in this particular time, the Pakistani side, this decision has been taken in principle that Pakistan will not oppose. So Pakistan will not be asking Beijing for its rescue at the United Nations and to veto it. That is what the decision has been taken in principle. A review meeting is to take place, a consultation meeting is to take place today at 3 p.m. Pakistan time at the Pakistani Ministry of Foreign Affairs. That is to be chaired by the Pakistani Foreign Minister himself. And after that, we're expecting a formal statement on that. But as what the sources have been telling, that this decision of not opposing the ban or listing of Masood Azhar has been taken in principle. And as a matter of fact, this will be the stated policy which will be conveyed to Beijing as well. After which, we're not expecting any vetoes from Beijing. Yes, Karthikeya.
Points made by you, Anas. One, that today there will be a formal statement. So by what time we should expect it? One. And secondly, you said this meeting will take place. Do you think that this concession will create some sort of a ground for talks, because conversation has not taken place between Imran Khan and Prime Minister Modi? Do you think this concession, little or big, that's for the governments to decide, will create political elbow room in both Pakistan and India to talk?
Well, if we go back, or if we go on to this talks particularly, the Pakistani administration is hopeful for talks, but not immediately after the elections. Remember, the Pakistani Prime Minister had not just once but thrice, in 3 days in straight, had tried to reach to Indian Prime Minister PM Modi, but unfortunately the conversation could not take place. Pakistani Prime Minister wanted to personally inform about the release of the Indian Air Force Wing Commander Abhinandan, but unfortunately that conversation could not take place. So the Pakistani side is indeed looking at some elbow room given, or some ground being created, given given by this, the fact that they will not be opposing. and that it will create some environment of talks, though they're not very much hopeful, given the fact that they're saying that or they're insistent, the Pakistani administration is insistent that talks can only take place after the Indian elections. Yes, Karthik.
Both is military and the Pakistani government on same page? Because often we have seen that conflicting signals came when Sharif was in power. So is military and the government in power on the same page on this issue?
Well, certainly the government and the military are both on the same page when it comes to this issue on the listing or taking decisive action against the non-state actors as the Pakistani state defines them, be that be Masood Azhar, Hafiz Saeed or any of their affiliates. Previously we saw that when this came in from Nawaz Sharif, we saw some opposition, and then we saw that infamous Dawn leak saga as well. But here, just about 11 days ago, the Pakistani top level security, be it the Pakistani National Security Committee, that was chaired by the Pakistani Prime Minister, and it comprises of all the services chiefs and the intelligence chiefs as well. They had taken this principled decision to ban all of these organizations, particularly Jamaat-ul-Dawa and the Fly Incentive Foundation. Now this came in just the day before when the Financial Action Task Force's joint statement came in that lashed out at Pakistan for its incomplicity to take action against the Jaish-e-Mohammed, the Fly Incentive Foundation and Jamaat-ul-Dawa. So by and large, if we look at it, both the military and the civilian establishment are currently on one page. Something that is to be noted is the fact that about a week ago, when we asked the DG ISPR, Major General Asif Ghafoor, in his press conference about this listing of Jamaat-ul-Dawa and the Fly Incentive Foundation, he was quick to say that everything has a time, and this was done after a proper procedure was followed, and about time has come to act against these elements. Yes, Karthik.
And Anas, is it correct that Masood Azhar has been moved from Rawalpindi to Bahawalpur? That movement has taken place?
Well, about the whereabouts of Masood Azhar, nobody knows where he exactly is. The sources close to Masood Azhar, the last they claimed that he was inside Pakistan in Punjab and not around Bahawalpur, particularly around Attock city. But nobody exactly knows the whereabouts of Masood Azhar as we speak. Though the Pakistani Foreign Minister has reiterated to CNN in an interview that the government authorities are in contact, but as of what we know, the information that is available to us is the fact that Masood Azhar is critically ill. He's had a kidney failure. He's unwell to the point that he cannot move, and he is in Pakistan. He's unwell to the point that he cannot even move out of his house. But nobody exactly knows where Masood Azhar is. Naturally, there would be government authorities that would be in contact with Masood Azhar, as the Pakistani Foreign Minister has claimed. It is a very big admission on the part, because on 26th of February, in response to our question at a press conference when the airstrikes took place, the Pakistani Foreign Minister was quick to say that there is no active presence of Jaish-e-Mohammed, and then just 3 days later, he going on to the CNN and BBC and admitting that Masood Azhar is indeed in Pakistan, that they are in contact with the JEM leadership. So the question now here arises is, who did the Pakistani Foreign Minister lie to? Was it in response to the Wion question, or was it to CNN or BBC? Yes, Karthik.
I think that is a significant point that you have raised, Anas. We will, of course, be tracking the developments in terms of how the Pakistani administration intends to crack down on Masood Azhar and Jaish-e-Mohammed.